Let's two-man game all week. A little two-man game. What do you know?
Conventional. You got a little guy, you got a big guy.
That's right.
It's a real two-man game.
This is a real NBA Jam combo right here. What is up, everybody? Welcome to the DNVR Nuggets Podcast. My goodness, man. It's Monday. I'm feeling great on a Monday. I'm telling you, I'm completely rejuvenated. It has been since vacation.
I can tell.
You know what? Like, you just got
a
feel
little
different.
glow.
We got Kale back, by the way, behind the ones and twos. He also has that twinkle in his eye. I haven't seen him so long.
Road trip beard.
Road trip beard going up. It's summer, though, Kale. It is summer, though. I mean, come on. Beards are hot. And we got a bunch of stuff to talk about. Some stuff that happened over the weekend. We asked you to send in mailbag questions. And me and Vogt going to be doing a little conversation. We might actually do a little bit more meta conversation this week. Okay. It's easier to do meta when there's two of us. When there's four people, it's like, come on. But we might be able to do some more abstract stuff, and that's what we're going to get into today. We're going to talk about in what ways was the championship as fulfilling as you expected.
Most ways.
And in what ways was it perhaps not? And what was that? How does that inform us for what's next for the Nuggets? We're also going to there were some great questions about when will peak Jokic be? There's questions about what could you add to Jokic's game, Michael Porter's career high, all kinds of good stuff. We'll get into all of it. But first, my colleague, Brendan Vogt.
Adam, I've told you this. I turned a new leaf recently. I'm a big walker now. I like walking around. Today, excellent walking.
Really?
Around.
It was good?
Yeah, if you guys are bored, feeling like a little antsy in the house, go for a little walk.
That is actually really good advice, although I will say we hung out at the park on Saturday. Vogt showed up sweaty as shit.
I did walk 3 miles. That was probably the limit to a social gathering.
Especially at like 3 in the afternoon.
Like out of breath.
Hot.
They're like, do you want a drink? I'm like, no.
Do you have any water for us?
Yeah.
So we have a lot of Nuggets conversation to get to. Did you know, by the way, Vlatko Čančar plays on Wednesday?
I didn't realize that.
There's a scrimmage. It's a scrimmage. I don't even know. I mean, maybe some pirated website will have it or something. I'm going to try like hell because I actually am excited to watch him play.
So am I, especially because in this context, it's some of when you get to see Vlatko explore his game and flex his muscle. I don't know if you've seen every pro-am is on NBA.com now, and they tweet out all the highlights. I think Marjan Beauchamp went for 83 points.
So there's different ones around the country. There's the Brunson League in D.C., or is it Baltimore? I think it's Baltimore. Edgar will kill me if I get that wrong. You've got the Seattle Pro-Am. You've got the Drew League. You know, you got the Colorado Pro-Am. Many people are saying, see, Derek White was here.
That's right.
You see Derek White with a shaved head, by the way, looks completely different.
I love it.
Do you? I hate it. I thought he had good hair.
I think.
Is he losing it?
Well, he was losing it.
Was he?
Yeah, that was an early business decision. But I like embracing it because he has time to rebuild his identity.
Yeah, you're right. It is early enough.
Yeah.
Starting
Kale, chime in.
guard, shaved head. He's ready to go.
Yeah, that's right. It's the new Derek White. I thought he had great hair to begin with, so I'm sad to see it go.
Yeah, but if he dunks now, it looks a lot cooler because he kept the big beard.
Yeah.
He's got like a WWE
That's
vibe.
such a different look to me, though. Shaved head beard is a look.
He looks so different.
Yeah,
he looks so different.
So we'll have to see. So there's pro-ams all around.
Miami too, I think.
Miami.
Well.
I mean, I used to play in the pro-am, not to literally the Colorado pro-am, and there would be guys that would come through. I mean, Earl Boykins, Chauncey Billups, those names, Jimmer Fredette. Like the list kind of drops off after a while, but it's not that deep of a pro-am if I'm in there playing it. But so there is ones in every single league. So when Marjan Beauchamp goes off for, what was it, 80-something points, my first thought was, must suck.
I know, man. And we like Marjan Beauchamp. We're big fans. But someone's probably got to play a little defense.
Don't you remember when Bones scored like 80-something points or something in that league, and you kind of watch it and you're like, what is this, man?
There are levels to this. You have to remind yourself, and we beat this horse a lot on this show, but Torrey Craig, G League, looked like LeBron James. So just the further these guys are all better than you think, and the levels are all steeper than you think.
I say that to say Marjan Beauchamp, wherever it was, let's say he was in Milwaukee, was playing against the Adam Mares of Milwaukee. And if I were guarding Marjan Beauchamp, easily 83 points. Yeah. Easily 83.
I'd be like, you know what I'm not doing? Getting on a highlight reel.
Yeah, of course.
Go ahead. Go right ahead.
Got me again. Also this weekend, though, before we get into the Nugget stuff, I finally did Barbenheimer.
Yes.
This weekend. And I got a lot of takes. And you're a movie guy. We like to talk pop culture here. So I thought it was really interesting. You've seen it. You saw it last week. Mm-hmm. So you saw it right away.
The two films separately.
Yeah.
I have seen
that are no way connected, but are absolutely connected. Somebody was telling me that there's a new one, or maybe I saw it on Twitter, Saw and Paw Patrol. They're calling it Saw Patrol.
If this is what it takes to build a culture around cinema
It
again,
might be.
I'm in.
You just pair two movies that come out the same weekend and have nothing else in common but that.
and we act like that's never happened before.
Yeah, we act and we're just like, yeah, you got to see Oppenheimer and Barbie, two movies that have nothing.
Saw Patrol.
I'll start with Barbie. It was funny. Like, so I went with my wife. I didn't do the dress up thing.
Well, congrats on the wife, first of all.
Oh man, it's been pretty great. Yeah. 14 years, 15, 17, I don't know, something like that. And so we went, and it was cool to see everybody like dressed up. You know, like the event of it, I feel was almost bigger than anything, which was, we'll file that away because to me it was one of my big takeaways. I'll say Barbie, 5 out of 10, 6 out of 10. I liked it. I thought it was funny in parts, but to me, it seemed like it's not a movie I probably would have seen if it weren't for Barbenheimer,
So
which is
true.
to show the power of this weird thing that happened organically. By the way, nobody put that together; it just happened.
Well, that is why it's appealing, because it's been. Of course, it can be exaggerated. People have made films across the Marvel era, but it's been so long since anyone talked about going to the theater for an event,
Right.
And so the I don't know how it happened organically, it seems, but that it came together that way is, I think, why so many people went in the first place. And I love it because I think they occupy two different important spaces in film and culture, especially in the summer.
Really?
Yeah.
What are those spaces?
Well, I considered Barbie a flick. And
Okay.
it's a summer flick, man.
Okay.
It's fun. I laughed enough times through the first 50, 60% of it to enjoy it. Back end, I thought rang a little hollow, but it's a fun summer film, and it was a reason to go to the movies. And not everything needs to be an Oscar winner, nor does it need to be a superhero movie. And to go to like a sort of middle ground film, if that makes sense, that had a lot of appeal to me.
What I thought was interesting was, like I said, I wouldn't have seen this movie had it not been for the whole event of it. And that's part of like my big takeaway was how drawn in I was to all of that. And like I want to stay away from any of the politics of this because there are like layers of it. I definitely do.
Okay.
But like that movie and then the weird one, the other one, Sound of Freedom, are like two of the biggest movies that have gone viral this summer, and they both went viral for almost nothing to do with the movie. And I'm just kind of wondering, like, what world, like, this is the world we live in now. When the Kardashians came out, 20 years ago, I remember everybody thought they're famous for being famous. And then, like, as time goes on, you realize, they were just their first influencers.
Right.
And influencing culture was just, they were the first ones. And I keep thinking with movies, is this where we're at now where, and it's nothing wrong, we've always marketed movies, but now where it almost becomes this like cultural thing. Every movie's going to be trying to become a cultural meme.
To me, that was the great success of the Marvel era, was that it tapped into that thing where people were more excited that a Marvel film was coming out in the beginning than maybe they even were about the content of the film itself. Right. And that sort of fandom and standom was kind of like took over. This runs parallel with what's happening in a lot of entertainment, I think, particularly the sports world, where I feel often like championship games or all-star games, the spectacle of it is what's sold and digested almost more than the game itself.
And the meme, like before memes became a visual like illustration or something, that meme was like a cultural gene, really, is where the word comes from. And I kept thinking like that's what this was. And then as I'm watching the previews to both movies, GameStop was a preview a movie that's coming out, right? About GameStop trading, where everybody kind of got on board to stick a middle finger to the hedge funds. And I kept thinking, this is the same playbook. Create this like groundswell movement where everybody goes to a movie and it has nothing to do. And again, the movie was good. It wasn't like it was a bad movie. So it didn't need this necessarily, but this made it into a thing. So I just wonder if that's where we're at now, where like the cultural part of it. And maybe this even plays in a little bit to the NBA. We keep talking about that are never selling the game. They're selling the everything else. And we hate that about the NBA because we love the NBA. We love basketball. And yet it's become that. And I look at this as like Barbie is fun, but I keep wondering, is this what we're going to get? These fake marketing things to boost up a movie. And it worked this time, so we're going to get more of it.
I would think, yes, so. Because the conventional ways of asking people to come to the theater were increasingly futile and fruitless. Right. So, yeah, this works, right? And I do think it kind of is an unstoppable movement that probably permeates just about all of culture right now. where marketing is almost eaten the thing itself and is almost a bigger and more important thing than the content itself. And that can be reflected in a lot of business practices and infrastructure. Like it's all about eyeballs, and then very few conversations about, is this good? Does this matter? Does this have a place for us? And
but also, like, what's the end goal of it? Because you know who I think failed at the Barbification of their own marketing this year was Dylan Brooks. Now, did he fail? He got $80 million.
Hang on. Clip that, just that sentence. I need.
I'm going to draw a line between Barbie and Dylan Brooks here. And that is Dylan Brooks, I said this, was trying to make himself the like hateable villain, this or that. And what happened? It blew up in his face. His team lost in the first round. Everybody blamed him, and his own team came out and said, "There's no world in which we're going to bring you back." Now he got $80 million, so it ended up working out for him in the long run.
Not a bad consolation.
Which just shows you how weird the NBA is.
Yeah.
That like he failed in every way. Cool, big, enormous contract. But that's my point. Is I think Dylan Brooks went into this thinking like, I'm gonna Barbification this thing up. And instead, he ended up flopping.
I can turn myself into Draymond without winning X rings first, just through the sheer power of how I sell myself. By the way, that has worked for a lot of people, and it kind of did work for Draymond. I mean, it was, I think, more organic than it was for Dylan, but he did build his own myth in real time. Right? The same stuff that you could describe as irresponsible or annoying for 99.9% of players that have ever lived. For Draymond, you go, man, that's that championship spunk. Right. So it can work and it can pay off. But yeah, again, I think there are myriad examples of this across all these different aspects of culture where the job of what you're selling is more important than what you're selling.
Right. Michael Malone, by the way, nailed his Barbie marketing moment. Like, don't you think? Michael Malone did a great job this year coaching, but it's like he multiplied it by 1,000 with everything that's come since.
It's almost 30% of the NBA coaching job these days, right?
Yeah,
but it's the part I think he really understands, and there's a really good balance, I think, between playbook. This is calculated, but also it can at least sound like it comes from an emotional and real place just about every time he speaks. And that's, again, we talked about this throughout the season. I almost thought of him as a Hall of Fame microphone coach before I started and you're like, well, but it kind of moved him up in my mind a little bit. Kidding me? And now you go on this playoff run. And yes, he was coaching an all-time great in Jokic, but between the title and the way he talked himself into that place, people are going to talk about Malone as a top 5, top 6 coach going forward. And I think both of those things are part of it.
Well, how about this? Because ultimately it's just if you win a lot. Like if this era Nuggets wins 4 championships, he's going to be like the 10th winningest coach of all time. Championships-wise. Maybe less than that. I don't know. I'd have to look at the list. It'd be a short list. But can he be the best personality? Like, who is on the personality head coaching Hall of Fame right now? Doug Moe might be up there. I mean, he was quite a character.
You're saying across the league or Denver? Or
all time. I'm just saying all time in NBA. Just NBA, if you think about characters, NBA coaches who were their own character. Like, I think Phil Jackson was a character.
No doubt.
Because of like all of his, like he would do the sage and, like he was just an eccentric, Popovich, because he's so grouchy, which is kind of a lame one to have, but his like media snappiness maybe makes him iconic. I just feel like Michael Malone, I'm not sure whose belt it is right now, but he can still that was the funniest on the mic coach of all time.
And he can, as he's astutely pointed out, no one's paying attention or watching throughout the year. He can run all of these back for the national media. And we saw it in the finals. He was dropping lines we've heard 4 or 5 years ago. And people are like eating it up. You know what I mean? So yeah, he can go back to that playbook. I really do think the way he was willing to talk about the Lakers, we see a lot of Laker fans not liking that online. I bet that was well received by every other fan base in the league. So there are things you can do to just, and you can see it online now. Like, man, that's the kind of guy I wish I would want to play for. I wish my guys could play for.
Who go outside basketball, but who are the iconic coaches in terms of they always have a good line?
Oh man, that's a great question that I feel underprepared to answer.
I know. I'm thinking like, is there a college basketball coach or just
I think Bill Parcells had a lot of isms.
Bruce Pearl used to be this way. Like Bruce Pearl he had a little Malone energy where you never knew what he was going to say.
Sure.
But
Belichick has his own kind of Popovich thing going. Yeah. Parcells always had isms, as the chat points out. Bob Knight.
Yeah, in a different way.
In a different way.
In a different way. I just wonder if Malone, like, it's weird to say, nobody aspires to that, but you have to win to be famous enough. And then you have to stay around long enough, which means you have to win. But if he does, and he keeps having, like, every year, there's a Malone on parade, like, thing, he just might become a guy that's like, hey, that coach, man, he was the best quote ever.
Half-baked projection take rooted in very little research. So we've got this wave, right, in theory, of younger analytic-minded coaches getting hired.
Yeah.
Think of our guy, Coach D in OKC. Marky D. Dagnott. These are guys that I think are going to be less prepared for that element of it.
Oh, so
and Malone
true.
can stretch a long reign of just, he's winning because Jokic is awesome, and then he just gets to drop every line he's ever wanted on all these kids with all the data in front of them.
I love it, man. I also saw Oppenheimer this weekend. Loved it. 10 out of 10. Made me miss going to the movies. I'll have to see it again. It's like a rare example of a movie that when it was over, I was like, I can't wait to watch this again.
Cinematic event. Acting powerhouse, directing powerhouse.
Unbelievably shot, unbelievably acted, unbelievably cast.
Thought-provoking.
I loved what it made me think about. It made me think about a million things, some like directly related to the plot or the story or this or that. Then other like, this is how you know a movie's good. It makes you think about random stuff that's
totally.
only like barely tethered to it.
Totally. I mean,
I was in thought all night after the movie, just like in like blissful thought about like all these interesting
just
things.
The concept of being principled itself or impulsive at first and reflecting immorality after the fact, or are you principled and do you do that ahead of time? And we could do this for hours, but it is it's thought-provoking, it's brilliant, and it's a thing that you would think you knew more about. You know what I'm saying?
For sure. Totally.
And then watching this film, you realize, like, I had absolutely zero context for the weight of this man's life and everything around him.
And we were talking, there is another, like most directors, I think, would have like the dramatic slow motion montage of like, you know, like, and this, I thought it was just so layered. It wasn't as simple as like, oh, guy creates thing and it tortures him. It's like, there was lots of layers to it that I thought were just so well, and there's so many great actors and actresses in it. That movie, I give it 10.
Dude, it's cool. It's cool. I know some people are like,
10.
wow, first segment, you're talking Barbenheimer. How about the way we talked sports, though, and weaved it in and out? But no, it's actually really cool to me that they're, again, a cinematic event. These two films together, how it worked out. Like, we're into this. We're into culture. We're into, in the era of blah, as some have described it, we're into creating things that have meat on the bone for a consumer. And that stuff, I don't know. It's just really cool to see people at the theater again.
Damn it, Bobby says, Coach Prime, Dan Sanders, honestly starting off hot as a microphone head coach. Hey, he might be. It's weird to think. I'm telling you, we have Malone, Sean Payton dissing Nathaniel Hackett publicly,
point, dude.
And we have Coach Prime. Like, we have 3 trash-talking coaches so far. I love it. Let's become the city of trash talk. All right, let's take a break. On the other side, I want to talk about this championship experience for you, Vogt, and for me.
Hey, it's been a crazy summer. A lot of ups, and ups can be a lot to handle too. Ups and downs. Life has plenty to throw at you. You should feel prepared to handle it, and you don't have to handle it alone, especially with our friends at BetterHelp. This episode of DNVR Nuggets is brought to you by BetterHelp, of course, and I've benefited from therapy in the past. Medication is important, building out your lifestyle to take care of yourself, have strategies to fight against, whatever it is you're dealing with. That's all important, but it can be futile at times without talk therapy as well. Let therapy be your map with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/DNVR today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/DNVR. Get 10% off your first month. So I tried some Kind Love last night. I tried their Raw Sin Reserve Live Rosin. Unbelievable. Really, really good, really clean experience. Helped me fall asleep in a nice, gentle way. Tasted great, felt great. And that's the kind of consistency and quality you can expect from Kind Love, which is one of the first dispensaries in Colorado. Been around since 2010. They do everything you know and love dispensaries for, plus they have their own products in the industry, like TurboCore. It's a 100 milligram stick that looks exactly like a toothpick. It's made of full spectrum cannabis concentrate, and you can just stick it in any joint you want. Enhances the experience. Visit one of their stores in Jerry Creek or North Denver. Mention DNVR. Receive the DNVR exclusive discount of 25% off all Kind Love flower, pre-rolls, and their Turbo joint line. You can also visit their website at kindlove.com and use that code DNVR for online ordering and their full extensive menu.
All right, back here, segment 2 before we get into the mailbag. And I'm curious to hear everybody's comments in the comment section, how you relate to this. Because this year's championship was very interesting. Interesting in 2 ways. One, we collected more dubs than I think we could have imagined. Like, if you told me how the Nuggets win a championship, it wouldn't have been sweeping the Lakers. It wouldn't have been Jokic getting all the best centers in the NBA and just turning them into, like, dust. It wouldn't have been Murray rising back to pre-bubble levels and beyond. All of the little boxes, like, there was almost no boxes left unchecked by the end of it. But at the same time, it was never really in doubt. Like, there wasn't that pressure.
I know.
And the emotional apex, weirdly, in my opinion, came game 3 against the Lakers when they went up 3-0.
I agree.
And from that point on, Denver's odds of winning it, whether it was Vegas or your own internal intuition, no matter how pessimistic of a fan you are, your own internal odds were like, they're probably going to do this. They're probably winning the title. So I do think that it was this weird where it didn't have a buildup that had a singular climax. And that maybe diluted it. But at the same time, there were a lot of dubs. So let me just start with this. In what ways do you feel the championship the experience was everything you thought it would be?
Well, first of all, they were in fact that much better, right? And it wasn't just that they got it done. It's that we long felt like in an A+ scenario, they could be by far and away the best team. And you can trickle that down to the individual level, that Jokic would be far and away the best player. And then, of course, the next layer than that, if you wanted to get greedy before it started, that Jamal Murray would show that he belongs in that elite conversation. And so it's one thing to just have the stamp of the title. It's another that it was just a validation tour for all these guys from start to finish.
The validation part, because there were worlds in which the Nuggets could get through and people would say the like luck thing. And the people that say that, this is how when we say we collected dubs. There are people that say that, but it is so unpopular to say that.
Right.
And that's what's cool. And it was really in the Sun series when you talk about validation, to me, that might be the number one thing. People went from, is Jokic fraudulent? Are the Nuggets fraudulent? Might lose to either the Thunder or the Wolves. Whoever wins the play-in, either team might have a chance. To by halfway through the Sun series, we'll say 7 games later, right? 5 in the first, 2 in the halfway through the Sun series, people were like, is anybody going to be able to challenge this team at all? It was such a quick and overwhelming narrative win
right
before it was even a championship win. And to me, that might be the singular most impressive thing is there's no tweet you can pull up from us from 2015 and later that hasn't been like, oh yeah, that's a great callback.
Yeah, it ultimately aged well.
And everything aged perfect.
Well, one of my favorite parts too, to continue the question, is that look, we've been there, right? I'm not they fall short, they lose, but you feel good about the season, you start rationalizing. How quickly it went to like, man, the Suns got 2 games. They got 2 games off these guys. What could that mean for the future? Lakers fans earnestly arguing, well, it was a really competitive sweep.
Yeah, it's a competitive sweep. It makes it so much better. That's what Lakers fans don't get. They think it's like some kind of insult. It's like, oh, no.
No, you played your A+ basketball for 4 games. No,
you did. Yeah, that was
you
guys almost won a game.
So there's no doubt, right? Like you do, if you want to, feel free, but you do not have to reply to anyone. You just don't.
Who is it? It's Wade that has been like,
oh my God.
Honestly, a hero we didn't know we needed.
He's still going.
He's still going. It's unbelievable how many receipts there are.
That bookmark. That Moby Dick versus It's Wade's bookmarks.
Yeah, no way. I'm taking It's Wade's bookmarks, man. He has been crushing it. What else? What other ways was it exactly what you hoped or expected?
Well, the Celtics didn't make it.
A lot of it to me is the narrative stuff. So there's the narrative of we said they were going to be great, but then there's also the narrative now of everybody is just like on board with them. Like the Nuggets have somehow managed to crush the Lakers and the Suns, 2 very popular teams, and yet everybody seemed to be rooting for them, which was cool.
Which was very cool. Well, ultimately, like it was a good result for basketball too, which is
I love this.
We're so excited.
Ethical.
What an ethical title. And we're so excited in an insular, like in our bubble. Yeah, they did it. But there's also like, man, so many teams tried to take shortcuts to that title this year, or just weren't well equipped to represent the league's best. And the Nuggets were built well, played the right way. I know people hate hearing that. We get to say it right now, and that's maybe the best part. For me, one more thing, Michael Porter Jr. I know people are like, well, he didn't play well in the finals.
I almost feel like it left us something wanting because he played great all playoffs, but not the finals. And it's like, all right, well, next year that'll be that.
That's
one.
it. That's the next level. And listen, man, that's his first finals appearance as in terms of basketball reps, a relatively young guy. But you look back at it, and it's the floor for Porter was just higher all season and postseason than we ever thought. And so it's not just that they won, it's that as long as he's healthy, spare me conversations about trying to find a better fit. Like this works. And they're all still together. Yeah. You know, this wasn't the end of the timeline. They get to roll this into a year where they'll miss Bruce Brown, but the starters, the best starting five in basketball, are still together.
All right, what about the other side of this? In what ways did it not feel as great or maybe not even as great? In what ways did it not feel like what you expected?
Finals were a little anticlimactic with respect to the Heat. And, game 2, I definitely got nervous. But
I love it with respect to them. Just the thing you say before you say they were too boring.
What is that stupid? Yeah.
they weren't good enough.
First of all, they're not listening, so who cares? True. Yeah, but I thought they were always going to beat the Heat, and then it looked that way for about 90% of the series. That's cool, by the way. Welcome outcome. Yeah. But I do, in terms of emotional payoff, you fight Nug life for eternity. There was something really weird about getting to the finals and being like, they're going to win, aren't they?
It's the delayed gratification, like the anxiety that hangs you over a cliff for weeks, and then it releases in one moment. And that's the thing for the Nuggets is it didn't this year. As I said, the emotional apex was Game 3 of the Lakers series, and even before that, they were up 2-0. So there was never a point when you were like, this game is going to make or break it. The closest you could come was Game 5 of the Suns series, but they kind of kicked the crap out of them in that game. So it was like there was never the moments of tension that lasted and just hung there. And the fact that they won Game 3 and you still had to do Game 4, so then you had another emotional peak after Game 4 of that series and you go to the finals. Then you had 9 days off before the finals began, which is an eternity. And all the while you're watching this Heat team going, they're going to smack these poor fools. And then they did. So I do think that was the one thing. I do think it would have been completely different. If you think about the Broncos Super Bowl, the first one, which maybe I'm the only one here old enough to really remember this, the helicopter run from John Elway, which, by the way, wasn't even that important in terms of like yardage gain, but it was supremely important in terms of like, oh, he's laying it all out on the field and just felt like the greatest thing. It was the greatest 1 yard. He gained 1 extra yard, but it felt like he gained 100. And that to me was like a real moment of supreme doubt that got lifted in there. Right. We never had that with the Nuggets. It was always a slow one. So for me, I think it's that. But I think there's a bigger lesson in it to me overall. Like I've always wondered, I've honestly dreaded this in the ascension of the Nuggets. I've always thought what if it's not as satisfying as people think? And I think there's a little bit of that I'm kind of experiencing.
I agree.
But it's more about, it's supremely satisfying. That's a long one too. I can always tell when a cop's going to be a really long one.
Oh man.
I can always, it's
sorry everyone.
There's these moments where it comes, you see people will post on Twitter every now and then or in the chat I just remembered we're champions. There's these moments with waves where it almost hits you where you're like, oh, that's right. This is dope. This is awesome. We did it. And then there's other moments where you just feels like Tuesday. And I think it really is for me one of those things where if I were to make my top 20 moments of covering the Nuggets and being a Nuggets fan, winning the title is only one of those. You know what I mean? And even though it's great, there's all these other moments that the 7 was in some ways just as euphoric. It didn't last as long. It wasn't as meaningful. But in the exact moment, it felt as cool.
I agree.
And that's both. It sounds on the surface almost discouraging, but I think it's actually encouraging that there's all these little moments that feel just as good, even if they don't last as long.
Yeah, it's almost like another layer of you were right to be watching all along the way, right? Because not only does this moment have a bigger payoff, but you get that hindsight perspective on, all of this payout, all of this payoff exists throughout the regular season and throughout these moments of watching your team try to get to that level. And so there is there's a bragging rights card you get to take with you after watching your favorite team win a
That
finals.
part's really great.
But it does remind you that
it's the difference between the championship versus like Embiid's 47 on Jokic,
that's
which
it.
they still call back, but it's like cool,
I'm sure
dude.
that felt amazing.
Yeah, I'm sure
but,
that felt cool back then.
but it holds no weight, and that's the difference. But again, I like that because it's just a reminder that not everything has to go exactly the way you hoped for you to get what you're looking for out of sports, because those euphoric moments exist on the way and in between.
Kale, how's it been for you? Kale's behind the mic here. Is it what you expected?
In ways you guys have already said yes and no. There was moments where like it felt just as satisfying as I thought it was going to me, having bought in on this team so early. So like that was really satisfying, but it was also weird that the emotional climax for me was Game 3 against the Lakers, and that's the like most euphoric I felt through the entire run.
I agree.
And that almost to me compares with like the bubble Game 7 against Utah.
Yeah.
Where that one to me was almost more of a peak of euphoria because, again, it was in doubt until literally the last second.
I will say what's been better than I thought, though, is the post-championship glow.
Yeah.
Like, all summer getting to just be like, I'm champions, you can't tell me anything. Every argument you get into with people about the Nuggets, you're just like, well, we won. So.
Well, honestly, you know what I have not encountered since the title is any Jokic slander.
True.
You know what I mean? I'm just not running into it. There aren't people that are like, well, I don't know if he... It's like, nope.
Not a single tweet has made me mad.
Not a single one. Like
a lot of them make me happier than I was before.
Yeah.
Which is rare.
And then lastly, before we move on here, Vogt, what, like this upcoming season, how could it go in a way that would be a completely new and equally, if not even better experience?
Oh, man.
You already got the Lakers. Like, I don't think you could run that back because it wouldn't feel quite the same.
It's a great question. You need the Suns again, maybe the Warriors, just to clean it up, full circle, just poetic full circle. I would say it's probably more about kind of how it happens. Maybe it's some version of it's not about Jokic quite as much. I'm not sure I could put my finger on that, man, because this was a perfect run. For me and my agendas and everything I wanted to see happen, it was just about perfect.
So is it better if they go like 16-0 next year and become arguably the greatest team ever if they run 16-0 in the playoffs? Or is it better if they go to a Game 7 in a key series and there's a huge fourth quarter performance?
Yeah, I kind of think the second one. And I know that's an insane, almost greedy thing to say, but it is what was missing, right? So, and some of my favorite titles from some of my non-Denver located favorite sports teams, I won't name them. It was the moments right up until the end of I truly do not know if this is going to happen. They got this close. We all got this close, and it's still up in the air because that is what that's what gives birth to the most beautiful moments of euphoria that only sports can provide.
Jokic last year got swept LeBron, and LeBron's old in age. Like Lakers kind of had their own Cinderella run. I feel like there is something important like to taking it from the previous guy, and like this has been LeBron's league for several years. Maybe the last few ambiguously so because there's changing of the guards, but I do think there's something from taking it from LeBron and LeBron leaving it all on the court in Game 4 and it just being like, nah, Jokic's got this still. Like you're only doing this to save face. To me, there's something cool about that, but I'm not sure what the next one would be. Maybe Embiid. Maybe it would be. Part of me thinks like 76ers fans love that regular season game, bringing it up. And there would be something too if Embiid just, again, dominates Jokic in the regular season, has these big time performances, and then they meet in the finals and it's like completely different, like a complete, like as definitive of a knockout punch as you can get, where it completely invalidates every regular season thing. The only problem is I don't want 76ers to get that far.
Well, I don't think you have to worry about it, but it's tough. It's tough. Because it does feel like that conversation's done without a head-to-head matchup. I don't think I've ever seen a matter settled so emphatically in my life as the NBA. So I'm kind of past it. I do wonder if there's still any juice to, let's say Giannis makes it back in a totally non-fluky way.
Yeah.
Because we got to see what not a lot of folk did, which was Giannis and Jokic guarding each other in a must-win game in Belgrade. And watching it, you're like, well, these are the two best players alive. And Jokic looked better. So I think the national audience, American audience, seeing that, and Giannis is playing his best, and he's putting up those monster stat lines, and no one can stop him from dunking, but it doesn't mean he wins the finals.
All right.
And so there may be more lessons Jokic can teach us about what it looks like to be great and what it looks like to win.
Yeah, I think so too. Beating Giannis too Giannis is the only guy that really has a claim. I mean, Luka this year, if he comes back and his numbers are so supreme that it's going to be maybe it's his time.
Right, that's a good one. Yeah.
But I do think that beating Giannis would be right now. Most people are like Jokic's the best in the game, but beating Giannis would be like, guys, everybody get out, everybody get out.
Because if someone says Giannis, I disagree, but I'm not going to get fired up.
I mean, he had 50 points in the finals.
Yeah.
All right, let's take a break. On the other side, let's open up this mailbag. Some really good questions came in from you guys.
Yeah, let's do it. Dude, how about game time? I'm actually trying to go see the Colorado Rockies.
Are you?
Hey, this is
Big trade.
This is a show of support in the team at least picking a direction.
That's what I was going to say. Our Rockies people are telling me that this was an important,
I've been on that show, and even I've sat there and said, just pick one.
Yeah.
Actually try or don't. And so, hey, they made a trade. I don't think they're going to look much better, but I'm going to try to go see them. Also, it's just great to see baseball in the summer. No matter what Denver event you're trying to see, concert, sports.
Are you going to walk there?
You got to download the Game Time app. Of course I'm going to walk there. It's Denver, baby.
It's
going to be walkable.
So sweaty.
Nah, dude. We'll talk about it later, but I got some new products.
Oh, I can't wait to
But
hear
I got to talk to you right now
products.
about Game Time, which helps you see any concert, any team, like your defending NBA champions, the Denver Nuggets. Download the Game Time app now. Join the millions that have used this app. Use code DNVR for $20 off your first purchase. Again, create an account, redeem code DNVR for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. And Volo Sports. I actually ran into a fella at Volo Sports who I used to work with at my old job in LA. It was really cool. Exchanged numbers, hung out. What a treat. That's the kind of experience you can expect with Volo. You get to go recreate. You get to go play some sports. We also get to meet some new people. So if you're new to Denver or just looking to expand that social circle, Volo, the largest social sports company in the US, is a great way to do it. We play with Volo so the kids can play for free. The Volo Kids Foundation is a separate 501c3 that provides free sports camps to kids in each city. You might see DNVR out and about. We've got a Volo team. We've already participated in a variety of leagues, and you can sign up for all of them as a free agent. Registration closes on Thursday, August 3rd. Sign up before it's too late. Get your Volo pass and start playing in leagues as a free agent today. Make sure to use code DNVR10 for $10 off at www.volosports.com/DNVR.
All right, Kale, let's dig deep into the mailbag here. We got some good ones here. I like this one. What year, actually this one I think came somewhere else. What year will be the peak Jokic year? I like this one. Now I did some research here. I prepared some research,
I like
okay?
that.
Look at the all-around players first. Your LeBrons, your Hardens, your Magic Johnsons, your Larry Birds, the guys that do a little bit of everything. They tend to peak between 25 and 30, with 30 being the last year. I think James Harden's age 29 season was his best. LeBron, he had two peaks, like 24 and then again like at 29. Those were his regular season peaks. Then you usually have a playoff peak that is separate. I think LeBron's best year ever was 2016. He was plus north of 30 by that point already. But in the playoffs, that was his best. In the regular season, it was probably 2013. And then you look at guys like Tim Duncan. Tim Duncan was 30 years old in 2007. That would have been his fourth title. He was dropped. He had games with 9 blocks in the playoffs. Like he had near triple doubles. He had monster games. He was unbelievable. And his regular season peak was 29. So I say that to say that it's possible it's already past Yoke, but it's also possible he's got like 2 more years of window to where typically you have a chance to have your best regular season.
Yeah, I actually think increasingly so these days. Athletes at age 30, 31, I think because it's going to be, the conventional athletic peak, right? 28 years old, 29 years old. Like we might see that change, I think, through sports science, that guys can carry their peaks a little more into their early 30s. And with basketball, as we've learned through Jokic's career to begin with, so much of this we make about their athletic peak and if they're declining, but athleticism, even for some of the most dynamic players of all time, is not necessarily the most important trait. LeBron is one of them, right? Who that second Cavs stint, was he quite as athletic as he was in his prime, physical prime? No, but he was a far smarter player than he'd ever been before. He had seen every defense, had been up against the wall. And I think that stuff matters more for the all-time great players, right? Of just notching experiences, knowing why you've lost, why you've won. Especially for a guy like Jokic, who's not jumping and sprinting to begin with. So at age 30, 31, is he just the smartest player we've ever seen? We like to say, like, oh, how could this guy get better? But he's gotten better every season. Yeah. And there's really no reason to put a hard ceiling on it until we see that.
So this last season, it's hard to say what his best year was. You know, if you go by the advanced stats, like let's just go by box plus minus, he's basically 9.1 3 years ago, 9.2 2 seasons ago, and then 8.5 last year. That all of those numbers are historic, and it really just comes down to how many shots did he take, and that's the only difference. But the numbers were all great. If you go back, his true shooting percentage was best last year, and he was closest to a triple-double, 9.8 assists. But his scoring was down. The year before, scoring was at an all-time high, rebounding was at an all-time high, but his assists were down. The year before that, it was another rounded one, 26, 11, and 8. So all three of these years, to me, are equal. Do you feel like there was a year that was better in the regular season than the others?
I'm sorry,
of the
last
three seasons for Jokic.
Was one better than the others?
Or do you kind of just put him in this, like, he was in that range?
I actually think this third year was his best year.
Why?
I think it was some of what we were just talking about, of like, I felt like having gone through those 2 years prior, he was just better equipped to, like, there was nothing left you could do to surprise Jokic, in my opinion. So I just think that third year he looked more in control of the game than ever before.
Last year, though, or 2 seasons ago, rather, that's when he had most of his iconic games. We think about the Clippers game. We think about the New Orleans game where Larry Nance said nobody's ever played better. Like,
that's a great point.
Like, he had maybe more of those games in him. The playoffs this year, he had more. I'll just say, to me, it's a 3-year peak that I don't know that there's a huge discernible difference other than the intangible stuff you're talking about, which is it seems like he can do more when needed. I'm going to go ahead and say I think that statistically he's going to have the next 2 years areas where he is at an even higher peak, and he's going to have statistical areas where he is lower. Meaning, I don't know if he's going to average a triple-double, but I wouldn't be surprised if he has his best 3-point percentage year. Or I don't know if he's going to score 27 a game again, but he might get, 11 assists. Something is going to be in that zone. What I will say is, Jokic was pushed in this playoffs, but not as much as I think he can be. And what do we say about Jokic? He's a goldfish. He grows to the size of his bowl. So whatever his regular season peak is, I think his peak playoff game and probably his peak playoff series is ahead of him.
I love that. And I think that is not as tied to the age thing, right? Like, we just watched Jimmy Butler dig deep for some of his best performances ever. LeBron, too, can still do it. I mean, not as much, but that's a more extreme example. So, yeah, I mean, there's still, I think there are levels he can go to in the postseason because, as you just pointed out, he wasn't really challenged enough.
And this is what I mean, man. Like, when he went up against Anthony Davis and there was, equal playing field, meaning he wasn't missing a key player or whatever, Jokic just dominated him, and we're not surprised. And this is why I look at Embiid, and I go, I just feel like if they met in the playoffs, which would have to be the finals, I think we're going to see the best Jokic. I think Embiid would force Jokic to be like, all right, I got to go into my bag in this one. And he would, and it would be an all-timer. And I just think at some point he probably is going to need one of those. He had Murray, they were winning everything else, but at some point he's going to need one of those, and we're going to get it. We're going to get the New Orleans game, but in a playoff game.
I actually do love this about Embiid. I don't know if I would love it as a Sixers fan as much, because I think we just learned some lessons about what's important in the bigger picture. But I love that he almost doesn't give Jokic an excuse. Not that Jokic takes them, but he's just like, no, man, we're doing this.
Right.
I know you're trying to play basketball. I'm trying to play against you.
Yeah.
And the former perspective might be why Jokic is more of a winning player. All the same, that'd be really, really cool to see on the big stage.
Along the same lines, if Jokic could add one thing to his game over the offseason, what would it be? Well, first of all, I don't think he's adding anything. I think he's doing horse racing and rafting. But if he were, we talk about all these other guys. What can Jokic add?
The easy answer was once the 3-point shot, but he just
38%.
I mean, he looked unbelievable from three when it mattered in the.
He only took 2 a game.
Yeah, but I mean,
And then in the playoffs, he took a lot more, which is kind of dope.
that's kind of what I'm saying. And then in the playoffs, he was lethal. So I don't know. I honestly don't know what the answer is to that question anymore. We could say leadership, but it sounds like he got better in that regard.
Just listen to this. What was his lowest series 3-point shooting this year? They had 4 series. What was the worst one he shot from 3?
Like, I don't know. Let's go 38.
42%.
Yep.
What was the second worst?
44.
44.4. Third worst, 47. And then in the first round, he shot 11 of 22, 50%. He shot 50, 44, 47, and 42% from 3.
Good one from 5-5. Ridiculous. Get to the line more.
Yeah, that'd be a good one.
Which maybe there are things he can do. The only thing with that is I just don't want his attention to go to the refs too much because I think that's one of his Achilles heels, or used to be, I should say.
I have leadership written down here, and this is kind of like, I'll be more specific about it. We heard reports, even from Bruce Brown, talking about how serious and how much Jokic was talking in the playoffs. You probably save that more. Like, we probably won't know or see this one until the postseason, because I do think there's something too. If Jokic is talking nonstop in October, November, December, by the time you get to May, his voice might be annoying. Somebody told me Ty Lue used to not coach defense until the playoffs because he wanted, when he started talking, it to be fresh and the teams to be locked in. And I wonder if Jokic intuitively to some degree has a sense of this, of like, if I tell people every day, if I try to pump them up, eventually it becomes white noise. But in the playoffs, we heard that he would take the clipboard, that he would tell Michael Malone, hey, we should go here, we should be trying this stuff. To me, I would love it if Jokic came into camp and said, you know, Coach, I've been thinking about it all summer. We've got to integrate MPJ, or we've got to stagger more, or we got to do something. And he's like, and I got some ideas. And to me, Michael Malone, I think, would welcome this. But I think the team could use it, and to me, that would be a great use for him to say, I know where we need to go. We need to go here. Coach, can you help us get to that point?
And then, Jamal can be the guy that just screams, wake up in the middle of February, right? And Jokic can... Maybe some of his input is valuable in what it looks like even when he's off the court with the bench. I mean, he's the smartest basketball player I've ever seen, so I would imagine he has some wisdom to part there. Yeah, I think that's the big answer. It's sort of the hardest one to get specific about because these are the doors we're not in the huddles. We're not on the floor. It's very hard to know precisely what he does and doesn't say. But that does seem to be something Malone calls for, and with some improvement this season.
Would you rather go back-to-back champs or win 3 in 5 years?
I'm not married to this at all, but I've decided I'm going to go with back-to-back champs. Because they got this year, and the only thing left is like, well, it was kind of an easy, which isn't even true, but like it was kind of an easy, like they got an easy path. And so to just do it again the next year and be like, what's up? What's left?
I'll always take the more titles. 3 in 5 years is very Spurs.
It's the better answer.
There would be something that's probably a little less satisfying, but you know what? It still prolongs the experience you get to have. But I'll tell you this. At the moment, I'm feeling supremely greedy. I'd rather both. Let's get back-to-back and 3 in 5 years. In fact, let's get 3 in 3 years. Why don't we?
Why not?
Let's take a break. On the other side, I have probably my favorite question. You could choose a player in the league that had a bad reputation for something to come and completely redeem himself. Who would it be? I got some good ones lined up.
You know what they say about back-to-back champions? Don't look them directly in the eyes, at least not without some polarized sunglasses on. That's where Shady Rays comes in. Not really part of their marketing campaign, what I just said. But they are a sunglasses company, and we love them because they're an independent sunglasses company that offer a world-class product. It's durable, it looks good, it feels great, and you can pretty much shop risk-free with Shady Rays. If you don't love them, exchange for a new pair or return them for free within 30 days. There's no risk when you shop. Their team always has your back. And exclusively for our DNVR Nuggets listeners, Shady Rays giving out their best deal of the season. Go to shadyrays.com and use code DNVR for 50% off, half off, 2+ pairs of polarized sunglasses. Try for yourself. The shades rated 5 stars by over 250,000 people. We're back.
And we are back. All right, let's get back into these questions here. I love this one. If you had it to choose a player in the league that had a bad reputation for something to come to the Nuggets and have a complete redemption season and show they were a winning player, who would you choose and why?
Boogie. Just kidding. Okay.
That one, I wouldn't, though, you know?
I know, I wouldn't either. Can I still take Ben Simmons?
Oh, well, it's hard because of the contract he's on.
Sure, but we're playing a game,
like,
right?
Yeah, we're playing a game. It's almost like if he got bought out and released from his contract and came. Yeah,
sure, yeah, I'll take it.
Yeah,
I'll take the flyer. Within the context of this question, not in reality.
Well, hold on a second. Because is this more because it didn't work with Embiid and him coming here? Is it more because you root for Ben Simmons? Is it more because
definitely not that.
His value is so low?
It's a little bit of the first and the third one there. Obviously, it would be the ultimate like
tearful interview with Taylor Rooks where he says Jokic saved my life.
Yeah. You know what I mean? Like that's what a teammate looks like.
Yeah, he's the best big man, but he's even a better person. But he means it.
He's the best player in the league, and he's my best friend. So there's some of that, but also just is there
such a good answer? Good job. Bro.
Is there a more talented player with like a lower stock right now? And it'd just be the ultimate. Like Wind would never stop talking about the Nuggets culture.
Oh my god, he would never.
Hang on, quick tangent.
Yeah,
Harrison Wind on vacation.
Yeah,
scheduled tweets about Jokic's horse's stats. Unbelievable.
Do you have another one? I want to hear this. If you keep going, that was such a good one.
Sorry, what's the question?
You just answered it.
I know.
What's going on right
it's
now?
It's scary for me too.
That is one of the most absurd things that's happened.
What just happened? He literally answered the question that I asked
Ben Simmons.
Him.
Oh, yeah.
No, well, I mean, that was your answer.
Yeah, but it led me to the question. Do you have any?
I want to hear it. If you have another one, it was so good. I have a bunch.
You go first.
All right. Lonzo Ball. What's his fatal flaw? Injury. It just would be cool if he came to the Nuggets, was healthy.
Well, Jokic healed him.
It's not about that.
Just rub some raffia into
He's
the knee.
actually Jesus.
Yeah. It's not even about that. It's just I love Lonzo Ball. And if he somehow came here, this was Sean Livingston, by the way. He couldn't stay on the court, and then he went to the Warriors and was like a key piece to them. It'd be cool if Lonzo Ball had this little 2-3 year window where it was like, you know what?
He checks in. You're like, another baseline turnaround? What's going on?
I have DeMar DeRozan, who I don't like. DeRozan's currently still like a star player, but I do think I just like DeRozan, and he's kind of thought of right now as like a losing player. And I just think it would be cool if he came in and was like the Nuggets' sixth man, but elite six man, fit into the culture, balls popping, everything.
That's a great answer.
And he's well loved.
I actually think he's one of the all-time likable guys, and I think Denver fans would love him. Oh man, he tears up. He's like, once I left Toronto, I never thought I'd get to be a part of a real like team, be a part of this again. But to be here with Jokic and the fellas.
Man, I like DeRozan. I have Herb Jones. He can't shoot. What if he came to Denver and could shoot?
What's wrong with Herb Jones' stock?
Dude, it's the weirdest stock of all time. It's like so low now.
It's true.
Right at the moment, it's like down. He's kind of down.
Yeah.
Dyson Daniels might take his
himself,
place.
not a bad one.
I think I love Paul George. This is my Paul George thing. I'm not ready for it quite yet, but there would be something to Paul George like DeRozan coming to Denver and just being like, I never played on a team like this. All the different places he went. All right, let me hear it.
Sorry, not to interrupt. Paul George is a great one. Karl Anthony Towns
backs up Jokic. Or plays alongside him, but
it just looks better. Actually, he can play defense.
Nah, he's in the boogie category where it's like
it's too much.
Yeah, he'd be like, I brought the winning culture.
Yeah,
that's every like, God dang it.
That's true.
Guy.
He's like, this is what I do.
Yeah, exactly. They told me they needed me. I think Cam Johnson is just a guy I really love. Right now, they don't think he can defend. I think he can. He'd be a fun one to come to Denver. And then the last one I have here is Luka, because at the moment, what is the redemption with Luka? He can only play his style. He's like James Harden. Everybody else has to get out of the way. What if Luka did come to Denver in like 3 years from now, extended the window even more, but played ball as popping ball, just swinging the ball,
swinging left and right.
He plays just like Jokic. Yeah, it's just boom, boom, boom.
That's
boom,
a great one. Great. I like that one. Obviously, in another level of unrealistic. 5.5 ish. Westbrook,
dude. Have you seen the way people talk about Westbrook, like teammates and stuff? He really does seem like the best teammate. He's rude with the media. He's like a dick with the media.
Right.
And so the media gives him no breaks. And
everyone in his life loves him.
And he does have he plays a style that is so far has not been very malleable. And when he's in a situation where that fits, it's great. but teammates all talk about him and how much he wants to do the right thing. If the Nuggets became the destination for DeRozan and Westbrook to come join the bench for 1 year and get their chip, but they actually do it, I would be with this. I think that'd be cool. As bit players.
Westbrook feels like the Bruce Brown role, you know what I mean?
Totally.
Just starts calling D'Lo trash. You're like, this is awesome.
That was a good question. I like those ones.
That's a good question. James Harden.
Is MPJ's continued growth more important for his offense or defensive upside? And then he has a secondary part here.
Yeah.
Would it be okay if MPJ's leap, this is the real question, if MPJ's leap next year is mostly on the defensive side?
Strong yes.
You're in.
Yeah, strong yes. Like, listen, they went 16-4, friends. You know, it was good enough. If he gets better on defense, that's a higher floor. And then one of the biggest elements you lost from the title team is the malleability. There's a word of switching and closing with Bruce instead.
Yeah.
But if you feel better about Porter as a defender, that's less of an issue. So obviously, I would like to see an offensive leap, but I would very much take just a defensive leap. I think the Nuggets would look great again.
A defensive leap means he is rightfully so, thought of as a true 3-and-D. Like right now, 3, because we keep thinking, how does he off the dribble game or this or that? But what if it really is like his offense doesn't really expand? He scored 17 a game last year. It wasn't like he didn't score.
Right.
Scored well. But defensively, he was like a true defensive impact player. I don't know if it's realistic to think all defense, because that's like we're starting to get up there. But if he really was a guy that was just like, no, man, he really shut down so-and-so. Or when he was on the court, they just couldn't get to the rim because he was blocked. He had that game with 6 blocks, and it was a loud 6 blocks or something. To me, that would be an awesome story for him.
I would love it. And I actually think it's more possible, not maybe how we framed it, but some version of that leap is possible.
I'm convinced it's his drop foot, man, or something about it.
Totally.
If it just somehow goes away, like a continued rehab, and all of a sudden he's like, you know what? Now I can walk without a foot brace.
You can kind of tell. Look, when Porter can move, plays pretty well.
Yeah,
both ends. But I think not being able to move is a lot of it.
Be a pretty great one. Oh, wow.
I was like, we didn't know we had a guest.
And then the last one I have here is just give me some must-dos for visiting Denver. What are your must-dos? Let me hear your list.
I'm going to embarrass myself. Can I just, in general, obviously, you absolutely have to get to the mountains. I know it's not in Denver, but it counts. And
I'm with you. I put Rocky Mountain National Park because for me, if you're from out of the state, Mount Evans in the summer, you can climb up and that gives you a good sense of the mountains. But Rocky Mountain National Park to me is a full day. You go there and you can spend the time hiking, driving, whatever. Gorgeous.
Yep.
Not going to go to Trail Ridge Road. Oh, it's gorgeous.
Grand Lake does it for me. I know it's a different part.
It's the same though, actually. You go over Trail Ridge and land in Grand Lake.
So, there's that. Red Rocks, easy answer. Denver, you got to go see every sports team, especially the Rockies, I actually think. I know that sounds like a joke, but Coors is a gem. Downtown stadiums that work well are just such a contribution to a positive downtown culture, and the team is so bad, I know, but I love Rockies games. I think they're a must hit.
I like sending people to Rhino to go out because I think you can get a little bit of whatever you want. Like you can get outdoor patio beer culture, you get microbrewery, micro distillery, and then you can get like bar culture if you want to go there as well. Definitely getting a good view of the city. Avante, I think, has a good one.
Avante's my favorite view.
It's a good place for like your first time to Denver. Go there, you can get a good view and have a drink, and there's a lot of different types of food.
17th Street is underrated in my opinion.
It is. It's great.
The Park and Co. Steubens kind of area. That's
really good. And then obviously the various parks, I would say, if you're just looking to like hang out at the park days are great days, man.
One thing too, like if you can't get to a game in person, I think it's called the DNVR Bar on York.
Oh, that's it. Yeah, right there in Colfax.
It's a cool place to check out.
Really cool place to go. All right, that does it. We're going to vacate the office here as we have a baseball show coming up with a special guest. They just made a trade. So if you've checked out on the Rockies, man, check in on this one. Find out what it's all about. Hit that like button for us on the way out. We'll see you tomorrow.